Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this episode, I'm going to be answering the question, how much current do servos really take? Now, maybe you're in the same camp as me and thinking, hang on, I was out flying the mini Talon on the weekend. That's got two servos in the wings, and it's got another 2 servos in the tail for a V-tail, which it doesn't matter if it's a V-tail or normal tail. You've got a minimum of 4 servos in most models. And how much current do they take? Is a 3 amp BEC enough? And that is the question which I want to answer in this episode, and you will see my little jerry-rigged thing going on here, and I'll explain what's going on. It's all really simple, and I want to answer that question because it's bugging the living daylights. Bugging the living daylights out of me. So let's zoom in and see what we got going on. So this is something I just literally jerry-rigged up this morning. What we've got here is some of the Banggood's finest TowerPro genuine fake MG90S servos. Now, I cannot find any current things on the interwebs, official ones anyway, for these servos, and you'll notice that I'm using 5. And the reason why I'm using 5 is it's just easier, you know. Well, I had 5 servos, so that's what we're using. Now, I know some people have posted this in the Facebook group. They said, why don't you do 1 and then times it by 5? Yeah, I think with in more realistic, you're going to have 5 servos, because you might have an extra one, say, in the nose for a nose servo, or you might have one for a tilt camera, for example. And then going back to my real life example with the mini Talon, is that I've got the 4 standard servos, I've got a pan servo, I've got tilt servo, and I've also got a visor servo as well. So hence I'm really curious. And all I've done is just screwed and hot glued these servos in. I've set them up so they're all out right near their outer limit, and what's going to happen is that the second that I turn the knob on the servo tester in a moment, is that they're all going to go underneath maximum load, so they'll all be stressed right out. Now, there is only one slight dicky one. I think that is a true fake one from eBay. The label on that one is a bit different compared to all the rest. So then I have the wiring nest over here. As you can see, it really is a wiring nest. All I've got here is all the positives and negatives all coming back to a 20 amp BEC. So that is a Yep finest for that. So let's not even go out on that one. Anyway, I've done 20 amps so that it gets as much current as it desires. And then I've got a servo tester here. You'll notice that I've only got 1 wire coming out of this, because that's going to the orange signal wires on all the servos. And then I've got a spare power lead here which I can plug in. Now, before I start, I've just got the multimeter set up here, and it's set round on volts. So I'm going to plug this in. There we go. No magic pixie smoke yet. That's always a good sign. Now, with this BEC, I can have, let me get this right, 5.5, 6 volts, 7 volts, and 9 volts. So I want to repeat this test when I'm on 5 volts and when I'm on 6 volts, because these servos can't be run on both. I think it's all the way down to 4.6 volts, all the way up to 4.6 volts, all the way up to 6 volts. So I'll be doing this both on 5 and 6 volts. So let's just make sure that this is actually correct. I'm just going to jab the ends of one of the connectors just here, and we'll keep an eye on the multimeter. And we have got 5.18 volts. So we'll call that 5.2 volts. I think that's fair, isn't it? 5.2 volts there. Now we need to turn that off. Now I'm going to go over to that side, which should now be measuring current, and I need to put the multimeter in the way of the circuit. So unlike voltage, where we measure the potential over 2 wires, what we're doing when we are measuring current is measuring the pixels as they flow through the cable itself. So as such, our multimeter, instead of just being jabbed on top and we make like an incision on top of it, what we now need to do is break the cables apart and then put the multimeter in the way. So there's one wire, just there looking for the other wire, and there we go. I'm going to unplug that quickly. So let's twist that round, so that's a nice it's good. And again, all this is just completely jerry-rigged, and that's the point. this is kind of like worst case wiring which you would find in a model airplane. It's got a bit of a dodgy circuit there, a dodgy connection there. It's got a bit of a dodgy connection there. It is kind of what it is. So I need to make sure that these two are round the right way round. There we go. And I'll put that on there. Now I need to put this multimeter round on amps, which is that one there. Cool, 0 amps, which is what we expected. Let's plug this in. Okay, and we've got a residual of, what's that, 29 milliamps being received on that. So I'm just going to quickly move that around. Brilliant, it's increasing when I move the servos. That's a good sign. So we're around, there we go. So we've got a residual 30 or 29 milliamps. That's just for this side of the circuit. On a head, it's not including the back, it's just for this side. So that is purely, these servos are just taking a drain current of 29 milliamps, which is 30 divided by 5. Yeah, I'll put the maths at the bottom. I'm not going to embarrass myself by doing quick maths. All right, so not a lot in short in the scheme of things. So what we're now going to do, we're going to move the servo tester around, and then we're going to stick it on full knacker. Now keep an eye on the multimeter, which will measure how many currents we're actually absorbing. Whoa, that is miles higher. It is currently taking 3.2 amps, 3.1 amps. It is decreasing. I don't know if that's because we got some give going on in the system, but there you go. That's 5 servos taking 3 amps. 3 amps. Right, let's take that back off again. I'm just going to go down. Now what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take that last servo off. And that, again, that was my own reference. I wanted to do this with 5 servos. So we've now only got 4 servos attached. And that is now more realistic to a model airplane which you may have. Okay, so think in the back of your head, we've just seen that 5 servos are taking 3 amps. Okay, that's all obviously underneath maximum load. But that situation is possible in your model aircraft. So using a 3 amp BEC with 5 servos is really borderline. Okay, that's what we've just learned there. It took more than 3 amps, and yes, we were in the 10% margin, but if you think that maybe you're gunning your model at the same time, giving it loads of full knacker, and you're pushing your servos to the limit, not only is that ESC, I'm assuming it's one which has got a built-in BEC, not only is it having to be like right on the limit for its current output to feed the motor, but you've also now trying to put the BEC at its maximum output. That's not like a good combination for us to be in. Anyway, let's get back to our second use case, which is now only 4 servos are connected, and we're going to put that round to full knacker. 2.7, 2.6 amps. Yeah, that's a curious one. Again, I'm just going to turn them all off, crank them back up. Yeah, the voltage is just dropping there a little bit. I tell you what, I just want to rule out the battery reducing. I want to rule out this pack which I'm using on the left. I don't think it's an issue, and I'm going to swap across to a different one. Just grab that from the side. Again, I'm just trying to rule out little things because that's really easy for me to do. Just go and grab another battery. So let's put that out of the way and let's crank that on full blast. 2.6. Yeah, and then it's slowly going down. Slowly going down. And you notice there's no magic pixie smoke yet. That's a bit disappointing. But we did have a peak of 2.6 amps. 2.6 amps. That's a lot of amps. What's that? So I'll do the power calculations in the bottom end corner. It'll be voltage times current. We'll get the, yeah, 2.6 it goes up to. That is very, very curious. Right. Let's do the second part of this test where I'd like to move this up to 6 volts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unplug that, move it up, and that should now be 6 volts. Now again, just for clarity, I'll just pop that over there and then that on there. Let's just make sure the output really is 6 volts. So I will plug that in there. There we go. Let's check the output now, whether we're on 6 volts or not. It doesn't matter. It's all show up as minus because I've connected it the wrong way round. Still on amps. You plonk, right. Yeah, so 6.2 volts. So we have 5.2 volts before, and now we've got 6.2 volts. That's a good sign. So let's get that all the way around to amps now. Let's get that plugged in there. Disconnect the circuit. We need to plug that in there again, trying to make sure that goes the right way round. Like I said, last thing which we want is magic pixie smoke. I did see the lights. You may have seen the lights just flicker down there. Nothing to worry about. That'll be a capacitor. That capacitor on the back of the BEC just discharging then over the circuit itself. And the last one, where's the other wire which I'm looking for? That one there. Brilliant. And again, I'm just going to pull that out straight. Wrap that one up nice and tight. There we go, just move that out of the way. Brilliant, we are ready for round 2. So this is with 4 servos. We're going to connect that up. 4 servos at 6.2 volts. Let's crank this bad boy up. 3.2, 3.1, 3 amps. That's a lot of amps going through those servos. So if you do run your servos at 6 volts instead of 5 volts, then look at the increase in here. And let's go and turn that back down again. Let's go and add in the 5th servo. So I've got that on the end now. Right, it's settled down, same kind of current. I think I've got, oh, there we go. It's settled down, it's 28 milliamperes. That's fair enough again. So this final test is 5 servos, 6 volts in our back, and we're going to crank that one up. Whoa, 3 points. What was that? I'm going to try that again. I'll be able to check that on the replay. Just crank that back up again. Yeah, 3.8 amps. 3.8 amps. That is an awful lot of current. And of course it is now dropping. And some of these servos are... I'm going to leave these on while I just have a quick chat. They are warm, which if you think about it, these servos are really underneath the maximum load which they'd ever be in, which is that they are going round, and if you watch them carefully, if I just wind that off a second, there we go. So there's our servo. Imagine so it's not great, is it? Let's get ourselves zoomed in and you can see what's happening. This really is like maximum circumstances. Okay, our servos are all away, and then when I crank the knob up, they're all going on there, and it's going out to 3.8 amps, which is just crazy. Just crazy. I think I've been and answered my own question here, is that if, again, I will do a proper summary when I get back to the desk and I look at the actual numbers and do all the maths and things like that. But my first reactions here, number one, I am really glad that I've been and done this test. I'll tell you why I'm really glad that I've been and done this test, is that I now know that if I'm running a model with 4 servos, okay, a 3 amp back is just about, and I mean this, just about enough, okay? If I'm adding even more servos into the mix, now say 5 for example, underneath maximum load conditions, is that we are going to be pulling, and again, assuming that I'm using 6 volts, which is, for example, what I'm using on the XUAV Clouds, is I now know that these have the potential, just 5 servos have the potential to pull almost 4 amps, which is just nuts. So, I'll tell you what, let me go and just sink in what I'm going to do here, and I'll cut into a chit-chat with me and you over at the desk, and we'll look at the results in more detail. Howdy, it's Matt. So, I'm back at the desk, and I've just been editing the video up with all these little cards and a few minor little edits which I've put in the video, and I've just been letting this sink in. And the thing is that like I said, I am really happy that I've been and done this test, because this was for all 5 servos underneath maximum load. So literally it just went round a few degrees and then they just hit a full stop. It was a piece of wood which they were hitting, and of course I cranked the servo tester up to the max and just to see what happens. And let's look at the results. So first of all, let's look at the 5 volt results which we've got here. So for 4 servos at 5 volts, give or take 100 millivolts, is that 695 milliamperes per servo.
And I'm thinking about the chat which was going on in the Facebook group before I did this, and I kind of agreed with one of the chaps in there, and he said about 300 milliampere per servo, and I thought that was probably about right. And that's probably what those servos take under like normal conditions. Whereas underneath this max load kind of environment, we were nigh on 700 milliamps, which is just nuts. And a total of 4 of them. So if you had all 4 servos lock up on you, like you were at full speed, the maximum deflection on all the surfaces, going wild or going nuts, as the case may be on these sticks, is that in theory you would pull a maximum of 2.8 amps. So on a standard like 30 amp ESC, which you stick on a model airplane, normally they come with a 3 amp back, and you would be around you would be, in inverted commas, safe. Okay, now I'm using the inverted commas safe because not all ESCs are born equal. You got to imagine as the temperature rises in the device, then the efficiency goes down. Also, like I mentioned in the main bit, is that if you're flying a model aircraft at full NACA, the other half of the ESC is running potentially at or beyond its limit. So let's imagine it's a 30 amp ESC and you've just rammed the throttle to the top. Motors spike and you could be pulling, say, 40 amps, for example, at that point in time. And at the very same time you've just mashed all the sticks and gone wild, is that you've then put your 4 servos out to the limits, is that is when things could go pear-shaped. So, and I know that I've pushed models well beyond the specified limits of 30 amp ESCs, for example, and 40 amp ESCs, and I've run into lately not as many issues as what I had when I first started off. The first Texumo wing I had, it ploughed in the ground, and that was purely back in ESC related, with a motor which was pulling too much current and it just had a brownout in it. So coming back to normal conditions, okay, at the extremities, you should be okay with a 30 amp, a 3 amp back for a 4 servo model. Okay, so normal fixed wing, 2 servos in the wings and 2 in the tail. Okay, should be absolutely fine. 3 amps, nothing less than 3 amp rated back would be the way to go. The cause for concern happens when you go to 5 servos. So in the video I used the example that maybe you've got an extra servo in the nose, which is doing a nose wheel because it's steerable. Maybe it's a model where you've got 2 elevator servos. Maybe it's a split elevator and you've got 2 servos in the rear. Maybe you have another example like a BFG, which is a big glider, and then you've got 4 servos in the wing alone, because then you've got 2 servos in the wing, you've got 2 servos for the normal ailerons, and then you've got flap servos. And if you think about flap servos, they're just like the servos in the use case which we've just seen a few moments ago, is that they're either off or they're on full NACA and getting really buffeted by the wind. So yeah, using a BFG glider, and if you don't know which one that is, I'll put a quick photo up at the top. Using a BFG glider, which is quite a tame model in the scheme of things, is that you are at 6 servos then, and you're going to be well beyond, in my humble opinion, the 3 amp marker, because even with 5, look, 5 volts, okay, normal back output for an ESC, with 5 servos, and we're talking about the BFG, which would be 6 servos, is that, you're going to be up in the 4 amp range, especially if you've got all surfaces going on at the same time, because you are going to be moving all your sticks potentially at the same time as well. So, 4 amp back, minimum. For that kind of, literally for minimum for like a BFG, for example. Now, the one big takeaway for me is that I do now need to go away. It's been fine up until now, but now that I've also been and added some pan tilt and visor servos, I will be upgrading the back, which is in my XUAV Clouds. And the reason for that is that I got 2 servos in each wing, and then it's got a VTEL at the back, so another pair of servos. That's 4 servos, that's fine. Now I run this system at 6 volts, just because I felt it made more sense because the servos are quite far out on the wings, etc, etc. Anyway, getting to my point, I've got that, but then I've also got a pan, so that's 5. Then I've got a tilt servo, which is 6. Then I've got a visor servo, which is 7, and I want to add an 8th servo, which is another pan and tilt, pan servo for behind that. So 8 servos at 6 volts is Jeeves 6.6 amps. So you know that 20 amp BEC which we just saw a few moments ago? I wonder where that's going. That is going to be going in the XUAV clouds because I don't have anything smaller. Currently, the ESC, which is in there, the BEC, which is in there, is only rated to 5 amps. And of course, if I'm going to, right now I've got 7, I want to add an 8th, and I'm going to be up there right near the limits. So there's a couple of use cases, in short. But I think the biggest thing for you to take away, and the biggest thing which I'm taking away from this, is that 3 amp BEC is adequate for a normal fixed wing aircraft like a AXN Cloud Surfer or even one of those little foamy 3D models. 3 amp BEC, perfect. However, the second you start using 6 volts or the second you go to a 5th servo, need to be upping that current so that the BEC, the battery eliminating circuit, the one which supplies the power to your receiver. Oh, and by the way, whoopsie, I didn't include the receiver in this. The receiver is going to be taking a few milliamperes at the same time. So yeah, you are going to be at the limit. And of course, any other accessories which you might have, LEDs for example, which I know don't take a massive amount of current, but it all does add up. So yeah, 3 amps, 3 amp BEC for your RC models for a normal RC plane is going to be a bit of an issue. But a little caveat here, which was one topic which we haven't discussed about, is an RC flying wing where there's only 2 servos in there. You should be perfectly fine and safe, assuming that you're using the genuine fake Banggood servos, which I've been using during this video, which is what I use in the vast majority of my models. I'll put a link in the top right hand corner to a discussion on those. I've used literally over 150 of them, and they've been absolutely great. I think I've had 3 failures, and I'm now in hindsight, I'm pretty sure one of them was a dodgy eBay one which I had. So hey ho, let's get back onto the topic. 3 amps or 3 amp BEC is okay for a normal fixed wing model. The second you go beyond that, I hope these numbers which you see up on your screen help you. Now, for absolute clarity, just be aware, these are the genuine fake TowerPro MG90S servos, okay? If you're using Corona servos or Hi-Tech or some other brand, is that you are going to have different results. Those are, I think they're 13.4 gram or about the 9 gram servo size on them. So I'm just going to label them as normal servos for RC. However, just be aware of that you're using bigger ones, different brands and things like that. Your mileage is definitely going to vary, especially with the bigger servos, which can really suck the amps in there. You do need to go careful. And of course, if you've got a tiny little Sonic wing model, it's never going to draw more than like an amp. One of those tiny little servos is never going to draw more than a few milliamperes. We'll say 200 looking at those. They're not going to be drawing massive amounts of amps. So of course you can go down in those kind of circumstances. So I sincerely hope that this episode has been at least enlightening to you, and hopefully you are now going to go eyes wide open into your next build, knowing that if I'm only using 2 servos because it's a wing, I've only got a 3 amp BEC, it'll be fine. Or maybe you're building, I don't know, an AXN Cloud Surfer for lack of a better example. This one's got 4 servos, it comes with a 3 amp BEC, should be all right. Okay. However, if you've got another model and it's like a mini Talon and you've got 4 servos and then you're adding pan, then you're adding tilt, then a visor, and then maybe another rear view camera as well on a servo, that's when alarm bells now need to be going off in your head, and you know that in those circumstances you need to be looking at a separate or better BEC within your model. So with that said, for myself, Matt, I sincerely hope that this video has been and helped you. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments section underneath this video on YouTube. If this is your first time here, I'm Matt. Welcome aboard. If you've enjoyed this video, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. Also, if you are new here, don't forget to press the subscribe button. And because YouTube's special, you need to press the subscribe button twice. So press subscribe and the bell icon so YouTube will let you know when the next video is out. It could be an informational video like this one, or it could be some mucking around with a model airplane. Who knows? Anyway, from myself, Matt, cheerios!